Thank you, Lord.
Welcome once again, my brothers and sisters, to another Living Hope Today study. So thankful to God that you're here. And today we're in 1 Samuel 14. You remember chapter 13 was very explicit about the fact that Israel was totally, absolutely unprepared to do battle with the Philistines. In fact, they had to go to the Philistines and have the Philistine blacksmiths sharpen their farm tools to have any kind of weaponry at all. We were also told that Israel has a few more than 3,000 guys, and the Philistines have an army that's like the sand and the sea. I mean, it's just huge. All right, so the odds are against Israel. The fight is about to commence, and there's one guy who thinks that God can do the impossible. He has faith. He's aware. Is it King Saul, the newly appointed leader? No. But it is his son. We'll get to it right now. Let's see if we can get that far this morning. Here we are in verse 1. One day Jonathan, the son of Saul, he said to the young man bearing his armor. So we don't even know this guy's name, but he's an armor bearer, carries the stuff. Okay. Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side. But he did not tell his father. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to infiltrate enemy territory to try to figure out what they're doing and maybe even to start something, all right? Well, Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah. He's under a pomegranate tree in Migron. Isn't it interesting that the author wants to make sure we understand that Saul's the king and he's over there sitting under his tree? And he has about 600 guys with him, it says here. All right, verse 3. Among whom was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. And now Ahijah gets identified. He was a son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub, son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. So here, as a side note, we're brought into the fact that there is somebody from Eli's priesthood with the king. All right, he's the son of Ichabod, so he'd be like the grandson, the great-grandson of Eli. Now you remember, God has told us that Eli's line isn't going to continue, and the people that are his descendants are going to die young. Okay, well, on each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. All right, so there must be some kind of ravine between these two cliffs. All right, one was called Bozez and the other Seneh. Okay. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, and the other to the south toward Geba. And Jonathan said to his young armor bearer, Come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised fellows. Okay, we know that he means the Philistines by that comment, right? Let's go over there. Perhaps the Lord, watch this faith. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Here it is. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Now that's a statement of faith. Jonathan's basically saying, look, it doesn't matter how many guys we have. It doesn't matter how many guys they have. It doesn't matter whether we have weaponry or not, whether they have great weaponry or not. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving. Whether there's a few of us or a lot of us, we're not depending on our skill, our training, our ability. We're depending on God's power. And there's no force on earth that can oppose God's power, at least successfully, right? Jonathan knows that. And he's thinking maybe the Lord is going to do something through us. Well, the armor bearer is going to say, what? Hey, do all that you have in mind, his armor bearer said. Go ahead. And beautifully, he says, I am with you heart and soul. If we're going to go over there, if we're trusting God, God's either going to let us get killed by those guys, and that's okay, I'm still going to be with you, or God's going to bring us victory, and that's okay too. I want to just stay with you. So Jonathan says, well, come then. We'll cross over toward the men and let them see us. So they're not sneaking. Listen to this. Listen to how this plot unfolds. If they say to us, wait there until we come to you, we will stay where we are and not go up to them. All right. But if they say, come up to us, we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands. So it's almost like Gideon's fleece. Jonathan is going to judge his reaction to their comments based on what they say. If they say, look, just stay where you are, we're going to come to you, then they're going to obey that. Normally in ancient times, the battle wasn't like snipers and too clandestine. The two armies would line up on separate sides of the valley, and when there was time to fight, they would both come into the valley and try to kill each other. So it was pretty well organized in the sense that Jonathan's not really afraid that they're just going to wipe him out. He's just basically on an espionage mission here. But he says, if they say you guys need to come up to us, which means they need to climb up to their ridge through this little ravine, well, then we know that God's at work and God's going to deliver us a victory. So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outpost. Look, said the Philistines, the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. Remember, in chapter 13, the Israel army is so overwhelmingly weak that the people are scattering and they're hiding because the power of the Philistines is so great. So the men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, climb up after me. Why? Because the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. They have triggered God's response by their statement. Have we read in this account anything about Jonathan heard from the Lord? Jonathan was led by his spirit. Jonathan was told by the Lord, go up and show yourself to the Philistines. We haven't read anything like that. No, Jonathan is just moved by God's Spirit in his heart, knowing that it's not right for Israel to be hiding. It's not right for them to think that they have no power against the Philistine army, because Jonathan knows the Lord is with them. They shouldn't be afraid. Jonathan, out of faith, has moved forward. Okay, Saul the king, he's back sitting under the tree. Well, Jonathan's showing himself to the Philistines, and once they give that response to come up to us, Jonathan is assured in his heart that he's going to have victory. So Jonathan climbed up, using his hands and feet, with his armor bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer followed and killed behind him. So now, Jonathan, if the topography was hard for me to find, but legend has it that this is a fairly steep climb. It takes you up to the high ground. For whatever reason, they get up to the top of the climb, and the Philistines are impacted. How are they impacted? Did Jonathan throw rocks at them? Did he have a sword? No, we're not told any of that. We're told that they just started falling over. And the armor bearer is following behind Jonathan, and when these guys fall over, the armor bearer kills them. He's defeating the enemy. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area about a half an acre. So the slaughter begins. Well, how does this happen? Well, obviously, God is at work. Jonathan's faith is being rewarded by having the impossible happen. Here are these big warriors that have great weaponry, that are outnumbering them by thousands. they fall. Why? It's obvious, isn't it? God is at work. There's something supernatural happening. And verse 15, look at this. Then panic struck the whole army. Really? Well, why were they scared? Because of Jonathan and his armor bearer? Well, what does this tell you about God? He has the power to impact all of our emotions. These guys become afraid. Do they think there's a massive Hebrew army about to crest the ridge? We're not told. We just are told that their ability to cope with events becomes emotionally impossible for them. They panic. Those in the camp and field and those in the outposts and raiding parties, and the ground shook. Oh, okay. Another miraculous sign by God. Guess what? There's an earthquake. It was a panic sent by God. God is actively responding to the faith of one man who was willing to say, it's not right that these guys think they're better, bigger, more powerful than the God we serve. No. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah in Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. So they're watching this vast army scatter. And Saul said to the men who were with him, muster the forces and see who has left us. And when they did, it was Jonathan and his armor bearer who were not there. So now we have identified at least who's responsible. Saul said to Ahijah, remember he's the priest descendant, bring the ark of God. At that time it was with the Israelites. Now, we got to stop here for a minute. Bring the ark of God. Saul is doing what? At some level, he's going to invoke God's care, God's guidance, God's power by bringing the ark with him into battle. But look at verse 19. While Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the Philistine camp increased more and more. And so Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand. Look, we don't need the ark. God's already doing it. I don't know if Saul understands it's God doing it, but this idea that without this box that God has anointed, we can't win is negated here. God is moving. Let's go with him. Verse 20, then Saul and all his men assembled and went to the battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their swords. This is part of the panic. This is what God has induced to defeat the enemies of his people. Those Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines, what does that tell you? There's some traitors in the crowd, right? We're going to go with the strongest hand. The Philistines are stronger than the Israelites, so we're converting. Now it says, look, there's some Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up with them to their camp. They went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. So now the Philistine camp has defectors within their camp that are going to battle against the Philistines as well. When all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. And there's the tagline today. So the Lord rescued Israel that day. The Lord rescued Israel that day, and the battle moved on beyond Beth-aven. God has proven himself once again to be the powerful one. The king doesn't really understand what's going on until it's all set into full motion. The king is over there sitting under his tree instead of being indignant at the fact that these Philistines think they're going to win. Well, before I leave you today, just one little side note, okay? This is kind of off topic, but maybe you'll get something out of it. Some people say the Bible is not historical and that these are made-up stories. And I want to take you to this. There's a book called The Romance of the Last Crusade. It was written by Major Vivian Gilbert was his name. In World War I, British forces under General Edmund Allenby were fighting the Ottoman Turks in Palestine. It was called the Sinai-Palestine Campaign in World War I. All right? British Brigade Major Gilbert remembers this passage. He's familiar with his scriptures. He knows 1 Samuel 14. The troops are ordered to climb up this very ravine that Jonathan and his armor bearer climbed up. The troops gain the high ground by using the same pass used by Jonathan. They surprise the enemy as they crest the ridge, and they win the battle. It's a very interesting story that even in relatively modern, over 100 years ago, but still in modern times, the stories that the Bible has put forward are used again, and the result is the same. Victory was theirs that day. God's word is true. But remember this: the faith of one person, the willingness of one person to act on behalf of God's purpose in God's power can change the course of history. Your decisions today are not to be taken lightly. We'll follow him with all our hearts, and we'll know that as we decide to stand up for truth and obey him, he'll use our lives for a purpose well beyond anything we can imagine. God bless you, church. Serve him well today.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory, the first, the last, the future, the past. He is God.